Will, an honest mechanic, didn't want to profit off a poor single mom. So his brother fired him from the family business. But it soon became clear who was really right. The rattling heat of the midday sun scorched an old road in the suburbs of St. Charles, Missouri. Along the faded facades of the small buildings were signs of diners and small stores. Once the place had been bustling with life, but now it seemed to have fallen into a leisurely slumber. Only the hum of the engine of a lone passing car broke the midday silence. Through the open gate of the Whetstone & Sons machine shop came the rhythmic clanking of metal, interspersed with short commands. In the far corner, behind a police department motorcycle, a young mechanic named Will Draper crouched. Tall, broad-shouldered, with thick dark hair, he wiped his oily hands now and then on rags and listened intently to the sound of the engine. When the engine stopped, Will leaned against the hood, as if trying to speak to the car in its own language. "It's okay, buddy," he murmured. "We'll figure it out." As Will fiddled with the alternator belt, Cole Draper, his own brother, entered the shop. Cole was the antithesis of Will. Lean, with slim, almost model-like features and a cold stare, he spent more time in the office than in the work area. He was in charge of strategy and always wore a starched shirt, as if specifically emphasizing that mechanical dirt was not his concern. "Did you remember that the dealers from the new Fletcher Auto Group Center are supposed to arrive today?" Cole asked sternly, looking around. "We need to make sure everything looks solid. They want to offer us a partnership program." "An affiliate program to sell parts at overpriced prices?" Will said mockingly, checking the spark plugs. "Sounds like pure profiteering to me. Our customers can't afford those prices." Cole sighed, stepped closer and stood so that he and Will looked like complete opposites. "If we want to stay in business, we have to keep up with the times. We can't play charity. People here aren't rich, and that's why they have to get by. If you thought a little more about profit and not the soul of old cars, we wouldn't have so much debt." Will felt a wave of irritation rising inside him, but he held back, gripping the wrench tighter. He loved every rusty detail, every faded paint job, the stories of people's lives behind it. He didn't want to turn repairs into a scam when he could help people the honest way. "Cars aren't just metal and bolts," he said softly, still working. "They're memories, part of families. I want customers to come back because they trust us, not because they have no other choice." Cole shook his head. "Things are going from bad to worse, and you're still bending your romantic line. I've arranged a meeting with the Fletcher Auto Group. Remember, if we don't agree to their terms, they'll open a service nearby and poach everyone. Don't blow the deal." Will remained silent, staring intently into the empty gateway. Outside the garage, under the harsh light of the sun, he could see a shabby billboard that read, "Reliable repairs at a reasonable price." Every time Will looked at it, he remembered his father. He believed that honesty was the only way to success, even if it was slow. Will couldn't betray that idea. The only question was how far Cole was willing to go. The meeting with the Fletcher Auto Group dealers was tense. Cole held himself confidently, portraying to the guests the image of an ideal manager, and Will tried not to get involved in the discussions, knowing that his honesty could prevent the deal from being finalized. In the end, the representatives of the auto giant asked for time to think, leaving the brothers a folder with preliminary calculations. It clearly showed the recommended prices for the parts, much higher than what Will usually charged. Cole, of course, saw it as a way to save, and Will saw it as a way to cheat customers. After the dealers left, a peeling pickup truck that would probably have been rejected in many places pulled into the garage. Out of it climbed a frail woman in jeans and a green hoodie. Her face seemed both tired and determined at the same time. She fixed a stray strand of brown hair and stepped timidly toward Will. "Hey," she said, noticing that the mechanic had come out to greet her. "I was told that they could help me out here for a reasonable amount of money. My name is Ashley Flynn." "Pleased to meet you," Will said with a slight smile. "What's your problem?" "My old Ford's been acting up for a month. I'm raising my daughter on my own, and I can't do without a car. But I can't afford to buy a new one. I'm hoping I have enough money saved up to fix it." Will asked her to put the truck on the elevator and then took off his shirt, leaving him in his work shirt. Looking at how nervous she was, he realized that every extra word about possible breakdowns could stress her out. He wanted to reassure the customer. "If you don't mind, I'll do a quick diagnostic. There will be no hidden fees here. Everything is fair." Ashley smiled sadly, as if she had heard such promises more than once, which then turned into empty words. But Will's eyes were trusting. She nodded, and he began his inspection. After half an hour, it became clear that the problem was not so much the engine itself, but an old fuel pump that was clogging. Several parts needed to be replaced, and a cleaning was required. Original Ford parts would cost a lot of money, but Will knew where to find better ones. He figured out roughly how much it would cost, and gave Ashley a figure that seemed to please her. But then Cole entered the conversation, coming out of his office. "Don't forget to add a fee for advanced diagnostics and supplies. After all, we're not a charitable organization." Ashley visibly faded. She already looked like she was afraid her wallet would be too empty. "Look, Cole," Will objected. "It's a simple enough repair. We're not the kind of people who count from the ceiling. Especially look at the condition of the car. It's important to find a balance between profit and conscience." Cole crossed his arms over his chest. "Balance, you say? What you call a balance is a penny. And we got power bills, rent, everything's going up. You want to cover that out of your own pocket?" Will wanted to answer, but he saw the frightened expression on Ashley's face and realized that an open argument would only add to her agitation. He turned back to her. "I'll do everything within the amount I promised. I guarantee it. If I need anything more than that, I'll let you know in advance." Ashley nodded, exhaling gratefully. Cole gave his brother a disgruntled look and slammed the office door as he left. Will walked over to the pickup and said in a calm tone, "Don't worry, Miss Flynn. Your Ford will run for a while." As he touched the worn roof of the car, he felt anger building in him, both at his brother, who was willing to abandon principles for profit, and at a system that made people feel helpless. But the most important thing to him now was to help Ashley. 2 days passed, and Ashley's pickup truck was in perfect working order. She came to pick it up in the morning before the rush started. About that time, a massive truck with the Fletcher Auto Group logo showed up at the gate. Cole ran out to it, grinning through all 32 teeth, hoping to intercept a shipment of new parts and sign some kind of agreement for future cooperation. Will, standing by the repaired pickup, waited for Ashley and handed her the keys. "Check it out," he offered. "We can drive around the block to make sure everything's okay." But Ashley seemed to trust him enough to start the engine right away. The light, smooth sound of the engine seemed to give her confidence back. She looked ready to cry with relief. "Thank you," she said, looking Will in the eye. "You have no idea how much that car meant to me. Every penny was important." "I understand," Will replied quietly. "Be careful on the road, and stop by if you need anything." They exchanged warm smiles, and Ashley drove away. But as soon as the noise of the engine died down, Cole flew into the shop. His face was aflame with anger. "Are you even normal?" he shouted, ignoring the mechanics and trainees who were watching the scene with curiosity. "We could sign a contract right now that would get us out of debt, and you give away the repairs at cost price." "It was the only fair option," Will replied, trying to speak calmly. "I can't charge $500 for a service when it costs $100. "You can and you will," Cole yelled. "Or they'll fire both of us. You think I haven't been offered other solutions?" "Fletcher wants to cooperate, but they need a business with good margins. If they find out we're doing repairs at rock-bottom prices, they'll back out." "Maybe it's for the best," Will said stubbornly. "Why do we need partners if their terms are ruining our customers?" Knocking the folder against the workbench, Cole gritted his teeth. "I'm sick and tired of you sticking your neck out all the time. You're a good mechanic, but you're hopeless when it comes to money." "So..." He was silent for a moment, as if trying to find the right words, and then he blurted out, "You're fired, Will. Get out of here right now." There was a tense silence in the garage. The trainees froze. The mechanics looked around in confusion. Will could see that some were ready to support him, but were afraid of losing their jobs. He sighed, feeling something clench in his chest. Never would he have believed his own brother would kick him out the door. "All right," he said, pulling off his oil-stained apron. "Do as you please. But remember, if you exploit people, it'll all come back to bite you." "Take your tools and go," Cole said, turning away. "I still have to get ready for Fletcher's management." Will took one last look at the familiar walls, kissed the faded picture of their late father that hung in the corner of the garage, and left after packing up his belongings. His heart was full of bitterness, but also a strange certainty. He knew he had done the right thing. Leaving the family business, Will didn't know where to go. Bills were tight, and the town wasn't exactly brimming with openings for honest-to-goodness mechanics. He thought about moving to a larger city, but he couldn't make up his mind. Too many memories tied him to his hometown. Fortunately, a few days later, he was contacted by Doug Hampton, a former auto mechanic, now retired, who ran a small roadside service. He heard about Will's situation and offered to team up. Doug's shop stood a little away from the main roads, but was known for its honest approach and affordable prices. However, due to competition with Fletcher Auto Group and other chains, revenues were falling. Will, excited by the opportunity, enthusiastically jumped at the chance. They renamed the service to H&H Garage, Hampton and Harper, under the surname Will decided to use on his mother's maiden name, so as not to be associated with Cole. However, renaming alone would not be enough. It was necessary to somehow attract customers, and Will went by the old principle: honesty plus quality service. He put up ads, went door to door to homes where he heard about car problems, and gave flyers in supermarket parking lots. As a result, H&H Garage gained some popularity among those who previously could not afford expensive repairs. And word of mouth was especially helpful, with people telling each other that Will was transparent and had no hidden fees. Soon, a familiar figure, Ashley Flynn, appeared on the doorstep of the H&H Garage. She brought her friend's car in for repairs and didn't miss the opportunity to thank Will again. "I still can't believe you really did it that fast and at that price," she said. "The pickup is almost as good as new. Thanks for not letting me break down under the weight of the expense." Will waved it off with a smile. "I was doing my job, Ashley. But I'm glad you're satisfied in the end." "I'm not just satisfied," she replied eagerly. "You've changed my idea of what a car service should be." During the conversation, Will learned that Ashley, in addition to her daughter, had a mother in a neighboring state, whom they had to visit sometimes. Her small family was very car-dependent. He felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. This is what he had worked for, so people could live their lives without fear of being cheated. While things were looking up at H&H Garage, Cole's story was very different. Whitestone and Sons had an agreement with Fletcher Auto Group, but as is often the case, the beautiful promises of mutual benefit turned out to be bondage. Cole had to buy large quantities of expensive parts and put customers' repair at exorbitant prices. But in a small town, people quickly realized that overpay in times. The reputation of the workshop was rapidly falling, and even a large sign with the logo Fletcher did not save the situation. Many customers were going elsewhere, including Will, because he had earned their trust. But Cole, stubborn and proud, didn't want to admit mistakes. He banked on the massive traffic promised by the Fletcher Auto Group and raised his prices even higher to cover the rising costs. This, of course, alienated the locals even more. All his life, Cole had been led to believe that all he had to do was partner with the right people, and you were golden. Only the reality was much harsher. Rumors about the problems at Whitestone and Sons spread, and with them the speculation that Will was right to advocate more modest rates. In the evenings at the local bar, Lucky Road, people discussed the latest news. Some gloated, remembering how Cole kicked out those who could not pay, and some really worried. After all, the workshop had once been the pride of the city. One evening, a pickup truck with the city police logo pulled up to Will's H&H Garage. Officer Ramirez stepped out of the cab, the same officer whose cars Will had fixed years ago at the family garage. "I hear you're in charge here now," the officer said, looking around the spacious, though not brand new, shop. I can give you some of our patrol cars for service if you'll take it. Sure, Will nodded. Just tell me what the time frame is and what the budget is. Ramirez grinned. The main thing I know is that you don't cheat. Every penny counts in the department's budget, so make us an adequate offer. By evening, the papers were signed. H&H Garage got a steady contract to service the city's patrol cars. For Cole, however, it was the final blow. His shop had serviced the police fleet up until a year ago, but because of disagreements and inflated prices, the contract with the department had been canceled. Now there was growing talk in town that Whitestone and Sons was hanging on by a thread. Will, though he didn't gloat, couldn't help but notice how his brother's fate was turning out. He remembered how much effort his father had put into the business. But sometimes, to preserve honor, you have to go your own way. And he was ready to take H&H Garage further, even if it was on his own. With each passing month, Will Draper's name was gaining legendary status in St. Charles. Old friends and neighbors saw that he could always get a car fixed at a realistic price. Some thought he was about to go bankrupt since he didn't make huge markups. But this did not happen as the flow of customers grew, and people thanked him not only with money, but also by spreading good reviews. In time, Will, along with Doug, decided to start a small charitable foundation, the Helping Wheels Foundation. They allocated part of the profits to pay for repairs for people who would face real problems without a car. For example, the elderly, or those who could not get to work in another city. The initiative sparked a wave of support on social media. Young people, volunteers, journalists, many joined in spreading the word that small-town values of mutual aid still live on. Amid this growth, things were getting worse for Coles. Fletcher Auto Group suddenly introduced new rules for cooperation, demanding even more parts purchases and threatening fines for non-compliance. Customers, in turn, almost all fled. Cole took one last desperate step. He mortgaged the workshop building on credit, hoping, with hope, that it would be possible to survive the temporary crisis and restore the customer base. But this only delayed the imminent collapse. Eventually, Whitestone and Sons declared bankruptcy. The building was purchased under the hammer by a certain entrepreneur who decided to open a tire repair shop there. Cole was left practically penniless. On the very day when he finally realized that everything was over, Cole crossed paths with Will in the parking lot of a supermarket for the first time in years. The brothers looked at each other in silence. The silence was broken by the voice of Ashley Flynn, who happened to be there. "Excuse me, is everything okay?" Cole sighed and looked away. Will looked at him sympathetically. This was his older brother. Once upon a time, they'd grown up together, learning to listen to their father and believe in family principles. But then, the paths had diverged. Will was struggling inside. Resentment for the betrayal and pity for the man who'd been left with nothing. "Cole," Will said quietly, "if you need help, just say the word." Will grinned bitterly. "Not long ago, I was sure I knew how to run a business. I wanted to save the shop at any cost. But I didn't realize the main thing. Without people's trust, everything is meaningless." They stood in the bright sunshine, listening to the creak of an old trolley wheel in the distance. Ashley stepped aside to give them a chance to talk alone. Cole lifted his gaze and squirmed. "I'm sorry I didn't listen to you, and I'm sorry I fired you. I was only thinking about profit at the time, not the fact that my father had taught us to stick together." Will sighed heavily. He knew the resentment wouldn't let go in an instant. But he saw the other Cole in front of him. Broken, remorseful. And he was still a brother. "There's room in my workshop if you want it," Will said. "But you'll have to abide by my rules. No overcharging and no shenanigans. Nothing but my conscience." Cole nodded, wiping away a tear. "I agree. I'm sorry, Will." That short phrase was enough to build that fragile bridge between them that could bring back some semblance of brotherhood. From then on, Cole really started working with Will and Doug at H&H Garage. At first, customers looked at him with suspicion, as rumors of his rigid pricing policies were circulating around town. But time and his efforts proved otherwise. He had indeed changed. Gradually, people began to realize that Cole had learned to keep his word. Helping Wheels Foundation also went in his favor. Cole could see that there was much more moral satisfaction in helping those in need than in making a large but dishonest profit. He would never be as much of a fan of old cars as Will, but he accepted the importance of that special treatment of customers. Soon, no one in town remembered Whitestone and Sons anymore, except as a story told to commuters as an example of the rise and fall. And H&H Garage thrived because it was based on the principles Will and Cole's father had once laid down: honesty, family, and a desire to help others. This proved the main thing. The truth always comes out. And if at first it seems that people prefer low prices to any high ideals, in reality, they are drawn to a place where they will not be deceived and will not be left alone with their misfortune.